Sports Bash with Mike Gill.
I am the voice of the voiceless.
97.3 ESPN, WENJ, WENJ HD, Millville, Atlantic City, a Town Square media station. This is Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. Now, live from the Matt Black Kia Studios.
What a move!
Here's Josh Hennig.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Hump Day Wednesday edition of the show. Of course, we are live in the Matt Black Kia Studios here on 97.3 ESPN FM. 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle City. And of course, we are live also on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, where you can watch the show right here. 97.3 ESPN on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Sixers back in action tonight. Their magic number is 5. In order to lock up the number 1 seed, they will proceed toward getting the number 1 seed. We'll talk with Kevin McCormick. He will join us right after Doc Rivers speaks to the media tonight. Kevin will join us around 6:42 tonight. Doc Rivers speaks to the media roughly around 6:30. We're also getting with Dave Weinberg. Weinberg Wednesday about the Eagles. His thoughts on the draft, his thoughts on the offseason, what is next for your Philadelphia Eagles. Of course, as always, whatever we're talking about, you can chime in on the conversation at 609-403-0973 on the text board if you're listening to 97.3 ESPN FM or the 93 ESPN mobile app. Also, if you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, you can comment and chime in on the show as well here on 97.3 ESPN. You heard me just say what is next for the Eagles. To me, it's one of the biggest questions for this team as we move forward, because there's a lot of questions about what this team's plans are short and long term. And I'm not going to sit here and play games about what this team needs to and doesn't need to do, because I think most of us understand what needs to happen. The question is, will it happen? I think that's the bigger question with the Philadelphia Eagles. I think that the attitude that they're taking is very obvious, okay? It is very apparent that they went into this NFL draft going for best player available. And it's very obvious that they believe, whether we agree with it or not, that they think they are doing what is best for the Philadelphia Eagles franchise in everything that they're doing. Which is why, on the flip side, when Rob Maaddi told Mike Gill this earlier on the Sports Bash, I had to listen up, because it really made me think about what this organization is doing. And again, it's a catch-22, because to me, Zach Ertz should have been gone by now, okay? And when Rob Maaddi said this, my ears perked up very, very quickly. Take a listen.
Where they're at right now, the Eagles have clearly drawn a line, Mike, where we're going to do what's in the best interest of the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to be critical of a team wanting to do what's in the best interest of the team. But we've seen situations in the past where they released Malcolm Jenkins. They released Deshaun Jackson several years ago. The Houston Texans released J.J. Watt. The Eagles could have released Zach Ertz, but instead they wanted a premium pick. They wanted a third-round pick.
Listen, I think it's become very apparent that Howie Roseman and Andy Weidel and the Eagles front office are much more interested in the Eagles' future than Zach Ertz's future. And I think that both sides are wrong in their handling of it. I think the Eagles are wrong because they're ignoring the fact that all the years Zach Ertz has put into and invested in the Philadelphia Eagles organization. I think what is being overlooked here is all the time and the energy that gets put into as a player, being a standard in the community, being someone who everyone looks up to, being someone who is a face of a team. You won a Super Bowl with this guy as one of your leading receivers. But for whatever reason, it seems like ever since the contract extension negotiations went sideways back in the fall, it seems like whenever that happened, the Eagles and Zach Ertz both just wanted to wash their hands of each other. And I think that's just a bad job by both sides. First of all, I can't speak to what exactly Zach Ertz was asking for financially. I do know that Zach Ertz is 30 years old, turning 31 later this year. I think Zach Ertz was impacted by the fiasco with Carson Wentz and all the injuries this year. And I think he had his own injuries that led to his poor play. But I don't think he's washed up. I don't think he's dead. I don't think he's a bad player. I don't think he can't play anymore, any of that stuff. I think that for Zach Ertz, whatever number he was asking for and whatever number the Eagles were asking for, well, at least what the Eagles were offering to him, it was such a gap that both sides felt offended. Now, whether they should have felt offended or not, I think that's ridiculous. And that's why I blame both sides. I think Zach Ertz could have avoided this situation if he would have just gone to the Eagles and said, look, if you don't want to give me top market tight end money, all right, if you don't want to give me the same kind of money that's been paid to George Kittle and Travis Kelce, what's a number that you're comfortable with giving me? What is a number that works under the salary cap moving forward? What is a number that we can do that's best for everyone involved? How can we do this? And it seems like Zach Ertz just wasn't interested in having that conversation. Again, according to reports out there, Zach Ertz wanted a certain number. What that number is exactly, I don't have it in my knowledge or my information. But what I do know is that when you look at the money that was out there, okay, guys like Travis Kelce, guys like George Kittle, two guys that were arguably in every measure as good or better than Zach Ertz multiple times over the last 4 years. Kittle is 28, Kelce is 32. So you have two guys who were on each end of the age spectrum and compared to Zach Ertz. Travis Kelce right now is in the middle of a 4-year, $57 million contract, which guarantees him 20 of that $57 million. George Kittle, who is younger than Kelce, is in the middle of a 5-year contract worth $75 million with $40 million in guarantees. I think if Ertz went to the Eagles and asked for either one of those contracts, it makes sense why they just told him no. I don't think both sides are, originally negotiated in bad faith. But if Ertz would have gone to them and said, you need to give me Travis Kelce money, and the Eagles just outright said no, that's their fault. If the Eagles went to Kelce and said, we won't give you Travis Kelce money, but we can give you at least a tier below that, and Ertz just outright said no, then that's on him too. And the fact that we're in this situation is a byproduct of both sides having at least no interest in doing what's best for either side. So, to me, I think that the Zach Ertz situation, it's a shame it's gotten to this point. And as Rob Monty said, the Eagles doing what's best for them and not for best for Zach Ertz. And that's a shame. It seems like both sides, could have handled the situation better. Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. By the way, check out my latest article over at 97.3ESPN.com. We spoke with Eric Edholm on Monday of Yahoo Sports, Emily Hunt on Tuesday from CBS Sports about the NFL draft and my perspective on Kenneth Gainwell, who I think is going to make a major impact for the Philadelphia Eagles in the 2021 season. To learn more about that, just go to 973ESPN.com, or if you have the 973 ESPN mobile app, you would have gotten an alert right now for that. That's right. You would have gotten an alert right now. And if you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, you can see that my phone has the alert on there. You can customize your alerts right now on the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, so you never miss any of the stories, any of the news, any of the items that are out there for the Eagles, Phillies, Sixers, Flyers. You can customize your alerts. You can customize your updates. You can get all the information you need right now on the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. It's free thanks to First Bank of Sea Isle City. Josh Hennig here in the Matt Black Kia studios on 97.3 ESPN FM. Matt Black Kia, they only get you approved today. That's Matt Black Kia on the Black Horse Pike in Egg Harbor Township. Visit them online at mattblackkia.com. It is Wednesday. It is hump day, and that means Dave Weinberg joins us coming up next. Talk more about the Eagles and more right here on Game Night. I'm Josh Hennig, hanging out with you. Of course, we got Sixers basketball tonight at 8 o'clock. Kevin McCormick will join us at 6:42 tonight to get more into the Sixers. But we'll get back to the Eagles next, right here on 97.3 ESPN FM. And we are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, where you can watch the show. Just follow 97.3 ESPN.
Wake up weekday mornings from 6 to 10 with Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zubin on 97.3 ESPN.
We're back on Thursday, and now the NFL draft is over. We'll tell you which teams helped their young quarterback the most. Plus, will the Broncos actually be able to land a future Hall of Famer again? Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zubin.
Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zubin. Weekday mornings at 6 on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Swing in to Matt Black Kia and put zero down. A hit with 0% APR financing. That's deep for 75 months. A home run. Don't get fooled by a bad pitch. Matt Black Kia in Toms River and Egg Harbor Township needs your trade, even if you owe thousands more than it's worth. So get out of that old car you hate and get the credit you deserve with zero down payment and 0% APR financing available for up to 75 months on every new 2021 Kia Sportage in stock, or get a $2,500 consumer rebate only at Matt Black Kia. We want to get you approved today, and you can't make a mistake with our 4-day love it or leave it return policy. Come in today or visit us online, because
it's gotta be a Matt Black Kia.
Offers with approved Tier 1 or 2 credit for PM Motors Finance. Not all will qualify. 0% based on $13.33 per 1,000 borrowed. Negative equity refinance into new loan. Go to mattblackkianj.com for complete details. Matt Black Kia, 6211 Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township, and now on Route 37 in Toms River.
comes to wings in the Delaware Valley, nobody beats the Piccalilli Inn. Enjoy ice-cold beer and their world-famous wings, tails, or ears on the Pic patio. Try new flavors like garlic parmesan, Jim Beam maple, or smoker. You'll see why people drive from all over for the Pics. World-famous wings and home-style favorites. Whether you're headed to or from the shore, for eat-in or take-out, make tonight the night. You visit the one, the only, the original Piccalilli Inn, Route 206, Chemung, New Jersey. For live music and specials, like them on Facebook.
You're listening to Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Of course, we are live here in the Matt Blatt Kia Studios. Want to remind you about my friends over at FanDuel Sportsbook. That's right, one of the things I love about FanDuel Sportsbook. We are still in the heart of basketball season, and you can still get in on the same game parlays. That's right. You take the money line, player props, over-unders, spreads, combine them into one big same-game parlay. Small bet gets a big payout, and you can only get those same-game parlays with FanDuel Sportsbook. And right now, new and existing users get up to $25 back in site credit each day if your same-game parlay falls one leg short. Again, a big payout on a small bet with same-game parlays. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app right now and sign up with my promo code Hennig to try same-game parlays. That's promo code Hennig with FanDuel Sportsbook. Must be 21 or to play. Present NJRPA. Refund issued as non-withdrawable site credit that expires in 7 days. Max refund $25 for same-game parlay insurance. See sportsbook.fanduel.com for full terms, conditions, and details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Joining us right now, as always, he does here on a Weinberg Wednesday. It is Dave Weinberg here on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Dave, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, Josh. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. So we are now about a week and change removed from the Eagles' 3 days of the draft. And I got to know from you, what were your initial takeaways from the 3 days? How did you feel how the Eagles did in their 3 days in the draft?
I thought they did okay. I mean, I'm not willing to give them like an A+, like seems like some other people are willing to do. But I thought the first round pick was tremendous, although they were kind of like backed into a corner a little bit. Once Jalen Waddle was gone and the two corners, Patrick Surtain and C.J. Horn, they really had no choice. They couldn't sit there at 12 because they knew that Devontae Smith wasn't going to be there, so they had no choice but to move up. But, I mean, I think he's going to be a difference maker. As far as the rest of the draft, though, I mean, I know everybody's lauding Landon Dickerson as this potential Pro Bowler when he's healthy, but there's an awful lot of injuries there. I mean, 4 and 5 years, torn 2 ACLs, 2 ankle surgeries that were ended his season. It seems like that's an awful big gamble that I don't know that it's willing to take in the second round. I mean, they made that mistake a couple of years ago with Sidney Jones, and they vowed never to do that again. But I guess the potential upside was just too big there. And, they filled some other holes. They got a corner in the 4th round, I guess it was, defensive line, offensive line here and there. So I guess overall it's they filled some needs that they had to fill. However, time will tell whether this guy's paying out or not, of course.
Right. So how do you feel about the perception that a lot of people have read into it that the Eagles' whole plan looks like they were just going to go best player available on the board and they weren't going to hyper focus on just need, because as Howie Roseman inferred about 2 weeks ago that they weren't going to do what they did last year again?
Yeah, I mean, I guess they did. I mean, they there was a little bit of a dispute there in the Eagles draft room. It looked like with Tom Donahue and Howie after they drafted in the 3rd round and took the defensive lineman from, I forget where he's from anyway. But anyway, it looked like Donahue wasn't too thrilled with it. I think they moved up a couple spots and got like a 6th round pick, and Donahue would have preferred to just stick with the board. So but I guess for the most part they did that. They targeted certain players for certain spots, and when somebody fell to them, they took it. So I guess it was a strategy, and I guess they followed it for generally speaking.
Dave, my favorite pick, and I am not abashed about this, of the whole draft. I know that Devonta Smith is going to get the headlines.
Mm-hmm.
I love the pick of Kenneth Gainwell.
Yeah.
Because this is the guy who got snaps over Antonio Gibson, who had a really nice year last year for Washington. We know the history of Memphis running backs. And I think that when you look at the Eagles, after Miles Sanders, there's not much behind him at this point. So to me, I feel like this is a perfect compliment for Miles because he already has experience playing in a timeshare, and in that timeshare, he was extremely productive.
Yeah, it should be. I mean, I would expect Miles to get the bulk of the carries, but, you had Jordan Howard and Boston Scott, take it for what that's worth. But, yeah, to get another potentially not a dynamic running back, I guess a dynamic running back, yeah. I mean, he's a very good receiver out of the backfield as well, which is, from what I understand, he's kind of like a Darren Sproles type of guy, maybe. I haven't seen him play that much, so I don't know. But, yeah, it was clear that they needed to upgrade the running back position, and they did that. So I agree with you. That was a very good pick.
Now that the draft is done, though, we got to move on. And what the Eagles haven't figured out yet, talking at the beginning of the show, Zach Ertz is still on the Eagles roster.
Right.
And it feels like this is something that should be taken care of months ago at this point. If you weren't going to keep the guy, why is he still here? So, Dave, I ask you, why is Zach Ertz still here?
I don't know. I guess the longer he stays, the more you have to be inclined that he's going to be here this year. I don't know if you're going to get rid of him. I would think that during the draft would have been the thing to do it, to maybe package him as part of a deal to move up. Maybe even in the first round if they wanted to, but they didn't do that. It's clear they're not just going to give Zach away. So, and teams, I guess, know that also. So they're just going to continue to lowball them, I guess, when it comes to Zach. I mean, I think he still has a lot of football left in him. I think he could still return to his Pro Bowl form. I tend to believe that last year was just a fluke almost, that just things just didn't pan out. Everything kind of went wrong that could go wrong. But I still have a lot of faith in Zach, and hopefully, maybe Nick Sirianni and his coaching staff, maybe they've done a little talking with Zach and kind of got him to buy into the program again and what they're trying to build. And if that's the case, then look for him to be in Eagles green again this year.
Dave Weinberg joining us for a Weinberg Wednesday here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN, at Dave Weinberg 19 on Twitter. Extra point columns over at 97.3 ESPN.com. Yeah, Dave, I talked about that earlier. Like, the guy's only 30 years old. He's not old. He's younger than Travis Kelce. He's only a couple years older than George Kittle. So he still is in that age range that you can see a guy be very good. And I just feel like the way this has been handled.
I'm sorry, Josh, you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. Your camera's moving around. You got me? You hear me, Dave?
I lost you. Wait a minute. Let me call back in.
All right, let's reconnect with Dave in a moment. We were just recalibrating there, but it's one of those deals where I was saying before Dave came on about the fact that, to me, I just feel like the situation with Zach Ertz, as I said at the beginning of the show, could have been handled better. And that's kind of where I stand with that. And listen, I understand that, there's no perfect way to handle this, but at the same time, just knowing the Eagles franchise history and knowing the team's history, I felt like it could have been different. So hopefully we can get Dave back up here on the live stream here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Let's see. I believe we have Dave back. Dave, can you hear me now? Just give me a nod, yes or no.
Yes, I can. Sorry about that, Josh. It's my fault.
Might help if I turned your mic on, but we should be good now.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay.
So you're asking about Zach, I think.
Yeah, because I just wanted to know, like, for me, like, it feels like with the history of Ertz and the history of this organization, this whole thing to me has just been mishandled. Like, historically, this organization, if they're moving on from someone, they move on. You know what I mean? And the player,
usually, yep.
And the player like Ertz, who's invested so much time and so much energy into the team and the community and into his career, it just feels like to be where we are with Ertz at his age and with this organization, it just feels not right.
I agree with you there. They seem to give up on him too quickly, and I'm not sure why that is. Like, he didn't have a good year this year, but that's the only year that he hasn't had a good year. And you're right, he's not that old. He's still a productive tight end in this league, I think. And you're right. I mean, the amount of leadership he brings to that locker room can't be discounted. If you're trying to build a certain culture, Zach Ertz is one of those guys you want to help build it. And maybe they've realized that. Maybe that's why he's still an Eagle. That's the only That's the only conclusion I can come to. I mean, I don't know why you were getting rid of him in the first place. So hopefully they'll see the error of their ways and keep him here.
It's been suggested by some that they're keeping him around to potentially trade him in a deal to go get a cornerback. Your thoughts on that?
I guess it's a possibility, man. They do need one, but it'd have to be a really good one for me to give up Zach Ertz for somebody like that. I guess that's a possibility. I mean, I guess you have to determine what your biggest need is there. I mean, they do need a corner. They're really short-handed there. They do have Dallas Goedert as a tight end, but you don't have much behind him. So I guess you got to like pick your poison, so to speak, whether you want to take a chance and maybe sign a free agent corner, or do you want to trade Zach Ertz for somebody? That's an interesting debate. I don't know how I would go. I think I would keep Zach and sign somebody myself, but Howie's the genius. So
not the adjective I would use, but sure, we can work that for Howie. Dave Weinberg joining us here on a Weinberg Wednesday here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN at Weinberg19 on Twitter. Dave, your latest extra points column was about Thomas Lamanna loses his shot in pretty explosive manner. Just a big knockout there. And what is the state of his career now? Because it felt like this was a big moment. This is something for a local guy to get to this level. He waited for this for a long time, and to lose this way just feels very deflating.
Yeah, he's got some soul searching to do for himself. That you're right. That was a pretty decisive way to lose a fight. A minute and 20 seconds. There were some people who were wondering how he got that shot, but and no fault of him, no fault of his own though. I mean, if someone offers you the opportunity, it's kind of like the first Rocky movie. If somebody offers you the opportunity to fight for the world championship, you can't say no. So whether he was deserving of the shot is immaterial at this point. He got it, and he tried to make the most of it. I mean, he gave it his best shot, so to speak. But Erislandy Lara is one of the best in the world, pound for pound, and that was pretty evident. I mean, Lara was several levels above Thomas. Thomas would have had to have fought the perfect fight in order to pull off a pretty big upset. I think Lara was favored anywhere from like 25 to 50 to 1, depending on who you believe. So, but he's got a lot of soul searching to do for himself. I mean, he's 29 years old now. I don't know if another chance is going to come along anytime soon. So, and he's been fairly successful as a promoter, along with his mom, with Rising Star Promotions. They put on some cards at the Claridge and the Showboat, some down in Mexico also. So, if he wants to stay involved in boxing, maybe that's the way to go, to go on the other side of the rope, so to speak, and work more as a promoter than a fighter.
It's always interesting to see a fighter who doesn't get to the apex of the sport, but has some success. What happens to them? Because I know, for example, when we think of, for example, football or basketball, it's like, oh, well, maybe you'll be a coach, maybe you'll be a broadcaster. Whereas for a fighter, it's a very different animal because, as you mentioned, yeah, promoter is there, but outside of being a promoter or maybe a coach, it's very hard to stay involved with the sport. Once you decide to hang up those gloves.
Yeah, I mean, you do see a few guys doing commentating, but yeah, aside from maybe being a trainer or promoter, there's really not a whole lot of options out there. But there are guys who they keep fighting. Even if you don't get that world title shot, there's still a lot of success out there that you can have. You're not going to make the multi-million-dollar payday, but you can stay alive in the sport. You can pick up a couple wins here and there, and stay involved. And if your love of the sport is that strong, then who am I to tell you not to who am I to tell you to hang up the gloves? I mean, I've never been in the ring, so I can't tell you what it's like or what to expect. So if Thomas feels like he can still be competitive, then more power to him. Just keep going.
Dave, let's jump over to baseball. First of all, let's start with
you got your lineup card right, by the way?
Well, you know what? Here's the thing. I think the other manager has it, but the umpire doesn't.
Right.
Which that in and of itself is ridiculous. I don't know how the other manager has the right lineup card and the umpire doesn't. I understand Joe Girardi is taking the blame for everything, but I feel like Girardi's just kind of getting to the point where we're just going to start seeing his hair fall out because I feel like this season is going to age him faster than anything. I mean, the Phillies just put Roman Quinn and Matt Joyce on the injured list, and they recalled up Moniak and Kingery. It feels like this Phillies season last night was just a just another example of how sideways this baseball season is going in Philadelphia.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it seems like there's such a topsy-turvy, bizarre kind of a scenario. Almost every game has some sort of sideshow to it, whether it's, getting hit in the face or, illegal substitutions or what have you. I mean, it's just everything just seems to be going against them. I mean, I'm glad to see Kingery get the opportunity, though. I think we've spoken about in the past, I think the Phillies, they did him no favors earlier by changing his swing around, making him swing for the fences when he's clearly not a home run hitter. If he can just go back to what he does best, putting the ball on the ground, hitting the ball into the gaps, I think he'll be just fine. So I'm hoping that he'll be able to take advantage of this chance this time.
I hope for his sake he can turn around, because I think he's a hard worker. But I just feel like the Phillies, it feels like they can't catch a break, because I think he might be better off staying in AAA and getting at bats down there.
Yeah, that could be too. Yeah, that's true.
Here and hoping to get some playing time, because between him, Moniak, and Herrera, who's batting horribly, is a doable Herrera. It just feels like,
to say the least. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, can you get any worse than 100? I mean, come on. I mean,
no. Well, Roman Quinn was that bad, but he started to get hot, and then leave it to them. He finally starts to put the bat on the ball, and now he's hurt or sick or whatever.
That's Roman Quinn's memoir. It's going to be called "Until I Got Hurt." So there you go. A guy who does not get hurt almost at all, and a guy who is playing well, is Millville's own Mike Trout. Dave, I felt like you might take it personal, because when we talked about a couple of weeks ago, I said he's got to bat over 400 for me to, I said that, tongue in cheek. Well, he's batting 407 now. So if anybody's going to now chase Ted Williams down, it might be Mike Trout, because Dave, I have argued this might be the best I've ever seen Mike Trout. And that's saying something, considering he's won 3 MVP awards?
3 MVPs, has been second a bunch of times. I don't think he's never finished lower than 4th in 9 years or something like that. Yeah, it's been, and to see him get off to the start that he's getting off to is just ridiculous. He's clearly the best player in the game. You can argue whoever you want, but I'll take Mike Trout over anybody. And I've always thought that 400 was one of those unreachable goals, kind of like 56 straight games with a hit or what have you. But I'm starting to think if he can stay, well, it's tough to stay hot for an entire season, but if anybody can do it, it's him. I mean, he has home runs, but he doesn't swing for the fences. He puts the ball in play. You can't really put a shift on him because he knows how to go the other way. He's as good of an all-around hitter and an all-around player as there is. So it'll be really fun to see him kind of flirt with that, at least for, going into July and August. And, the entire country will realize what we've all known for a long time, that he is a tremendous player, probably the best in the game.
It is interesting, though, to say that the best players in the league right now are all on the West Coast. You got the Angels, you got Mookie Betts with the Dodgers, Fernando Tatis Jr. with the Padres.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very strange turn of events, because years ago it was all the best players were on the East Coast. It was the Yankees, the Red Sox, the Braves. Right. Even teams like Cleveland at one point, they had Albert Bell and all those guys.
Mm-hmm.
So now you have all these guys on the West Coast. It definitely changes the topography of the baseball world.
Yeah, I think you and I have talked about this before, where we, people complain, they should be at Red Sox, they should be in the Phillies playing for the Yankees, but the fact remains that those West Coast teams are just as popular as the East Coast teams out there. So, there's no edict from MLB that you have to play for an East Coast team to be successful, and those guys are proving it now. Hopefully, the rest of the country will start to turn into those West Coast games. I mean, be like me, take a nap in the afternoon, and you're ready to go at 10:30 when the Angels come on MLB Network.
It's a good strategy by Dave Weinberg. It's a Weinberg Wednesday at Dave Weinberg 19 on Twitter. Check out his extra point columns over at 973ESPN.com. As all guests, he appeared right here on the Boardwalk kind of hotline. Dave, always appreciate you jumping on the conversation.
Well, thanks a lot, Josh. I appreciate it. I want to wish my grandson, Graham, a happy 3rd birthday. It was the other day. So congrats to him.
Kids, they grow up so fast, right?
Yeah, they sure do. Man, it just flies by. Yep. Well,
right,
thanks again.
Have a good one, man. Mike Yell waves you in the background there as well. So there you go. Dave Weinberg chimes in here on a Weinberg Wednesday here on 97.3 ESPN. Mike Gill makes a cameo appearance in the background on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Coming up next, we'll head up to the Sixers. They're back in action at 8 p.m. tonight. Here, Tom McGinnis on the call right here on 97.3 ESPN. Kevin McCormick joins us next to get into the latest of the Sixers. The magic number is 5. Can they get that 5 before the end of the season? The schedule says yes. But what does Kevin McCormick say? We'll ask him next here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN FM and 97.3 ESPN mobile app. It's free. Thanks to First Bank of Seattle City.
It's Sixers basketball tonight on 97.3 ESPN with the voice of the 76ers, Tom McGinnis, calling all the exciting play-by-play action.
Embiid in the lane. Mills driving. Here's a shot by Joel off the back. Tapped in by Simmons. And it counts.
The Sixers are in Houston to face the Rockets tonight. Coverage begins at 8 p.m. Philadelphia 76ers basketball on your radio home of the Sixers in South Jersey. 97.3 ESPN.
Swing in to Matt Blatt Kia and put 0 down. A hit with 0% APR financing. That's deep for 75 months. A home run. Don't get fooled by a bad pitch. Matt Blatt Kia in Toms River and Egg Harbor Township needs your trade, even if you owe thousands more than it's worth. So get out of that old car you hate and get the credit you deserve with 0 down payment and 0% APR financing available for up to 75 months on every new 2021 Kia Sportage in stock, or get a $2,500 consumer rebate only at Matt Blatt Kia. We want to get you approved today, and you can't make a mistake with our 4-day love it or leave it return policy. Come in today or visit us online because
it's gotta be a Matt Blatt Kia.
Offers with approved Tier 1 or 2 credit through Kia Motors Finance. Not all will qualify. 0% based on $13.33 per 1,000 borrowed. Negative equity refinance into new loan. Go to mattblattkianj.com for complete details. Matt Blatt Kia, 6211 Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township, and now on Route 37 in Toms River.
Live an active lifestyle, aches and pains can be part of the game. That's where Trifecta Therapeutics comes into play. Trifecta Therapeutics is a premier sports rehabilitation physical therapy center located centrally for anyone in South Jersey, right in Glassboro. Their team of the highest skilled docs takes a unique approach to physical therapy and rehab. Whether you're a weekend warrior or a finely tuned athlete, they treat the pros and the Joes. To find out more about Trifecta Therapeutics and how they can help you, check out trifectatherapeutics.com.
Now, more Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Sixers back in action tonight. So if you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, yes, I threw the hoodie back on because the ice box has burned out enough time to deal with the thermostat settings in the building. So, but we'll get into the Sixers conversation right now. Our Sixers pregame report being brought to you by Trifecta Therapeutics in Glassboro, South Jersey's premier sports rehabilitation and physical therapy center, treating the pros and the Joes. Visit them online at trifectatherapeutics.com. Kevin McCormick back again, joining us on the Boardwalk kind of hotline here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN FM, as the Sixers will take on the Rockets tonight. Kevin, how are you doing as we are about an hour and 20 minutes away from what we hope to be another Sixers win?
Josh, I'm doing good. How about yourself?
I'm doing all right. So I've been told that the magic number is 5. So my question for you is, will the Sixers get the magic number of 5 before the last couple games of the season?
I think they have a really good shot of just looking at this upcoming stretch. Really, the only formidable opponent they have left is Miami, and it feels like there's just this recurring trend of the Sixers playing teams that are no longer in a state of competition at this point in the season, and they're opting to just kind of sit half their roster and just roll over the game. So at this point, there's really no excuse why the Sixers shouldn't finish with that top seed come the end of the regular season.
We know that they were able to survive a couple of games already. The Rockets team obviously is arguably the worst team in the NBA at this point, so we would assume they would win tonight. But then it gets interesting because, I'm not going to sit here and guarantee the Sixers are going to win any games. Selfishly, I want them to beat the Pelicans because I don't want the Pelicans to make the postseason for a variety of reasons. But aside from my own selfish endeavors, I think that when you look at the schedule, whether it's the Pelicans, whether it's the Pistons, Pacers, who are, what the heck is going on with them? I feel like they should at least get it before the last game of the season. At least if I'm being fair, because I don't know what the state of the Heat game is going to be, considering that the Heat are probably playing for something.
At this point, they have the easiest remaining schedule. There's really no other way to put it. When you look at this remaining schedule, there's not one game that comes up where you're like, oh, maybe the Sixers should lose that one. And if there really is one, you might have to say it's the New Orleans game just because of what Zion did the first time around. But I feel like now that they've had the time to go against him, that might be a wrong that they try and right this time around. But I agree. It's not going to be easy in the NBA. You're still facing NBA players, whether it's a full team or a team that's dealing with injuries or resting players. So I feel like the main thing we've talked about recently is just that focus. You want to remain focused. You don't want to overlook any teams. You don't want to be looking ahead to the postseason too soon, because while the Sixers, have a chance to coast into that 1 seed, the job is still not done.
If the Sixers get the 1 seed and they get to the NBA Finals this year, they need to send the Milwaukee Bucks some flowers, because the Bucks have basically written the book on how to beat the Nets the last 2 games. It's incredible watching those games because, one, Kevin Durant is amazing to watch, but also when I'm watching the Milwaukee versus the Nets, it's like the Milwaukee says, we have your number. What do you think you're going to do to us differently? And if I'm the Sixers, I'm taking that game tape and I'm storing it on some hard drive, and I'm saving that for if I got to see the Nets in the postseason, because you know what? If you get the 1 seed, you're going to the conference finals and you're facing either the Bucks or the Nets. And I feel like they can beat either one of those teams. And I feel like the Bucks have already given you basically the layout to how to beat the Nets.
I feel like that's been my major thing with Brooklyn recently. Even looking at those 2 games, Dante DiVincenzo grabbed 15 rebounds against Brooklyn from the beginning when they formed this iteration of their roster. The main thing that's been brought up is they're arguably a revolving door on defense. And when you have matchups like that to go off of, it stands my point of I refuse to look at the Brooklyn Nets as this clear-cut favorite, despite all how top-heavy they are and all the firepower they have on offense. If you can't lock in on a team defensively and get stops when it matters, you can't be looked at as a clear favorite to go all the way. Whether it's a team, whether it's against the Sixers, whether it's against Milwaukee, there's yet to be a game this season where I've seen Brooklyn tape where they've been able to lock in defensively, show they're engaged on that end, and be able to come up with stops. So it's a fine plan in the regular season where you can win games 140 to 133 or just run up the score like that because of the offensive firepower you have. But in the playoffs, it's a different beast. The game is going to slow down. And when you get into the nitty-gritty of games, you're going to need to get stops if you want to pull out wins. And Brooklyn has yet to show they can do that against any opponent.
Kevin McCormick joining us here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN at Kevin MCC NBA on Twitter for all of his Sixers and NBA coverage. Sixers back at action tonight versus the Rockets. Hear all the action right here on 97.3 ESPN coverage begins at 8 o'clock. Tom McGinnis on the call. Speaking of the Rockets, to me, the guy that matters so much for the Nets is James Harden, the former Rocket. And I feel like without him, it's become pretty obvious, Kevin, that the Nets needed him more than they realized. And now that they trade away half their team to go get him being on the sidelines might look like a great cheerleader, but there's something to the fact that to me, Harden and Durant are borderline unbeatable in the Eastern Conference. But one of those guys without the other, I feel like is showing more and more that it's not enough. And by the way, Durant doesn't play great defense. Harden doesn't play great defense, but they certainly try harder than Kyrie Irving and Joe Harris out there.
Hey, Joe Harris isn't that bad of a defender, but Kyrie Irving definitely. If that's the one matchup where if the Sixers,
really quick, who plays worse defense, Kyrie Irving or Zion?
I'm gonna have to go with Kyrie just because Zion has the chance to just have that miraculous play where he rises up and he sends a ball into the stands. When you're a freak athlete like Zion, I feel like you can kind of luck into being looked at as a good defender at times, but Kyrie undoubtedly is the weaker defender, and no matter who Brooklyn meets in the playoffs, if I feel like attacking Kyrie as a defensive matchup is the key to beating them, because if you can wear him down and attack him constantly, like I just said, they're a revolving door on defense. So the key to beat them is to try and find the kinks in the armor. And if I'm looking at the Brooklyn Nets, him being a weak defender is arguably the biggest one, because like you said, Durant and Harden aren't, good defenders in the slightest, but when they lock in, they can get some stops. We've seen Harden in the past hold his own in the post because he's kind of a bigger guard. Durant has his length and, some agility left to where he can hold up with guys. The weight's a concern, but still, when engaged, they can give you a little something on that end, while Kyrie is just, it's rough. Even when he tries to look like he's locked in on that end, it's still rough, and he is definitely that weak point of who you want to attack when going at Brooklyn.
Kevin, I saw that Matisse Thybulle was speaking, talking about Danny Green, and I want to ask you, in your perception of this team, obviously this question is a little limited because the exposure for guys like yourself of covering a team has just been going to the games and sitting about 2 million miles away from the floor. There's no locker room access, there's no practice access, so I understand asking this question is a little bit limited in terms of scope, but who do you think has been more valuable for this team in terms of changing the leadership? Has it been Danny Green or has it been Dwight Howard? Because it's a hard decision for me to differentiate between the two, because I feel like both of them have brought so much to the leadership of this team in that locker room.
It is really so tough to say, just because even throughout all this season, when guys talk about the culture change from past seasons to this season, they mention them both. It's not they mention one or they mention the other. Arguably, maybe you could say Danny does more for the starters and Dwight does more for the bench, because of that's who, when they're in practice and when they're on the floor, maybe that's where their impact is. But I might have to give the edge to Danny just because, no offense to Dwight, he's been amazing here. I think his free-spiritedness, along with the experience he brings and the narrative of his career, has been crucial to what the Sixers have done. But Danny Green, his resume and what he's been around, I feel like in terms of just war stories, he might be able to give a little more. And looking at players like Matisse Thybulle, like Furkan Korkmaz, like even Isaiah Joe towards the end of the bench, they have so much to learn from a guy like Danny Green, because they can mold their game similar to his, to where, when all is said and done, a couple years from now, guys might talk about what Dwight Howard did for them this season. But I feel like for the next 5 to 7 years, however long those kind of young guys are here, we're going to continually hear stuff that Danny Green did for them, and kind of how he talked in their ear. Even Matisse Thybulle said today, he said on the daily, Danny Green is giving him constant little things to help him improve his game. So I feel like in terms of the long-term impact, I might have to give the edge to Danny Green.
Also, Green's got more rings, so that always helps as well. No offense to Dwight. Dwight's got Defensive Player of the Year award and all that, but Danny's got 3 rings with 3 different teams, and I feel like that's got a different kind of clout. Like when you walk around and be like, I won a championship. No, I won a championship with 3 different teams that I was a contributor on. So that feels like it sounds a little different when it comes into the locker room.
I agree, and he's also played under Coach Pop. He's played for Nick Nurse, who's a great coach in his own right. So being under the pedigree of the coaches he got to play for and playing alongside some of the players he got to play for definitely does give an edge. But you still have to give credit to Dwight because his mishaps, in a sense, could be a learning experience as well, especially for a guy like Joel Embiid who's entering his prime now. Dwight's even said this before, that he's talked to Embiid a lot about some of the mistakes he made along the way when he was at his apex and in stardom, and how he doesn't want Joel to do the same. So, I mean, Dwight, his miscomings and his roller coaster of a career definitely does bring value on a team like this where your cornerstone is a center, similar to how Dwight's Orlando teams were built.
Kevin McCormick at Kevin MCC NBA for your Sixers and NBA coverage. Sixers versus Rockets tonight at 8 p.m. on 97.3 ESPN. Kevin, one more before I let you go, and that is, if the Sixers get the 1 seed, I think a lot of people believe that they have a path to the NBA Finals. If they were to make it to the NBA Finals, what would that say about this NBA season for the Sixers?
That's tough. What would it say about them? I would have to say it would give a lot of credit to their adaptability, their survivability, and just how impactful change can be even in the smallest of scope. When you're looking at this season, it's been hectic. It's been insane. There's been limited practice time, and you're looking at a Sixers organization from top to bottom that went through so much change, of bringing in Daryl Morey, of departing from Brett Brown and bringing in Doc Rivers, to completely reshaping this roster. And they had to completely learn on the fly, but they just came together. The camaraderie's there. The culture change has definitely been there. And you can see these guys, they want to win. They want to be great together. And if they can get to all the way to the finals in year one, I think it speaks volumes to just the determination that they've showed as a group to show that, you know, they're here. And despite all that, this overhaul that they've always had, this kind of, the potential was always there as the core of Embiid and Simmons was building.
He's Kevin McCormick, our Sixers writer over at 97.3 ESPN.com. Check out all of his coverage over there, as the Sixers have the magic number of 5. They need 5 more wins to lock up the number 1 seed, and they should send flowers to the Bucks for taking out the Nets for 2 games. As all guests, Kevin appeared on the Boardwalk on the hotline. Kevin, keep up the great work, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Josh. Have a good night.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN, and our Sixers coverage being brought to you by Trifecta Therapeutics in Glassboro, South Jersey's premier sports rehabilitation and physical therapy center, treating the pros and the Joes. Visit them online at trifectatherapeutics.com. We'll get a couple texts in here before we get out of here. 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973 is the text board. Danny HC says, I just feel like the Sixers have to seize this opportunity. Number 1 seed to a championship, just like the Eagles did. Year to year, you just don't know how it's going to unfold. Dan, it's a great point, because this might be the Sixers window. We don't know what's going to happen next year or the year after that or the year after that. Listen, Embiid may go on to have a superstar run, but what if Ben Simmons has a major injury? What if Tobias Harris has a major injury? What if something happens that we don't foresee? So you're right. You know, you got to be all in for this year, because this might be the only year you get. Next year is not promised. Look at the Eagles. If Alshon Jeffrey catches that ball against the Saints and they get to the NFC Championship game that year, maybe they do go back to the Super Bowl. All right? Maybe it's them versus the Patriots for round 2. Maybe Doug Peterson and the Eagles are part of history, and it changes the entire narrative of the Doug Peterson era even more than it already has. You got to take advantage of the situation, because you never know what could happen next year. One more text to get to here at 609-403-0973. Nick and Brigantine says, Josh, I can name at least 3 stars on offense I'd get rid of before Zach Ertz. Also, I know there's many more defensive players I would get rid of. Nick and Brigantine, you're right. It's one of those deals where I feel like the situation, because it's been mishandled, there's a perception about the team, about the player. The problem is some of the players that you would get rid of, they can't for financial reasons, or there's a variety of reasons. Obviously, financial, contractual obligations, dead cap money. But yes, you're right. There are numerous players you would get rid of before you would consider getting rid of Zach Ertz. I completely agree with you. But listen, I feel like both sides have dug in on this situation and they put themselves in this predicament. All right. Thanks, Kevin McCormick, for joining the show. Thanks to Dave Weinberg for joining us here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Sixers versus Bucks tonight at 8 o'clock on 97.3 ESPN. Spin and Fits coming up top of the hour right here on ESPN Radio. I'm Josh Hennig. This is Game Night. I'll catch you tomorrow.
It's Inside the Sixers every weekday at 3:20 on the Sports Bash.
And it's good!
Featuring 97.3 ESPN.com Sixers insiders Paul Hudrick, Kevin McCormick, and Jason Blevins. Listen and get all the latest news and opinions on the Sixers from our team of insiders. Each day, we'll give you a dive deep into the Philadelphia 76ers and give you the information that no one else can deliver.
And lays it up and good! Ben Simmons, he would not be denied.
Miss a segment? Don't worry. Go online to listen every day and get all the best Sixers coverage in South Jersey at 97.3 ESPN.com and the free mobile app. It's Inside the Sixers every weekday at 3:20 on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.